hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Mbokk yi ñuy seetaan man la al oustaz Mouhamadul Amin Kane Al Mansouri maa ngi leen di massaw ci feebaru mbas bii nga xam ne wër na àdduna bi tëj na doomu aadama yi ñu koy wax coronavirus ku ne xam na ne rey na doomu aadama yu bare bari ci àdduna bi feek am na ku ko am rek yëgal ne kenn muccagul lu ciy pexe la ciy pexe mbokk moo di nga jóg gaaw léegi bi nga déggee sama kàddu dem jëli vaccine bi comme vaccine am na nañu sant yàlla te vacciné wu dalalal sa xel nga dem jëli vaccine bi ndax nga aar sa bopp aar sa njaboot waaye aar ñeneen ñi nga dëkk ak ñi ngay jëflante.
askan wi génn leen ñu pengu jee fagar lu moo gan fa jooyaay mooy li ñuy aar.
So while these mics are here, I can use the Electoral Commission, and he will be giving the keynote statement. Just want to say briefly that we welcome you all to this event, this seminar with political parties, part of a project that the GPU is implementing on access to information on elections. And I will not go into details about this project. Mr. Lamin Jatta would speak on that. So I call on him to give the welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everyone, once again. I want to first and foremost thank you for leaving your busy schedules to come and attend this. I want to thank you for leaving your busy schedules to come and attend this seminar that we organize. We know this is perhaps one of the busiest moments for political parties. The voter registration is on, and you have a lot of stakes there. You need to make sure your party agents are coordinated at the polling stations, but you also need to make sure that your supporters and your sympathizers are also out to make sure they register in their large numbers. But despite all those coordination efforts going on, you decided to come here to attend this seminar. For that, we are very grateful, and thank you for coming. I particularly want to thank the CEO of IEC, Mr. Samujan Jain, who is here with us. We know at this stage in the life of our country, if there is any public office that is busy, it's the IEC, and this is the peak period of their business. And he being the administrative head of the institution, he decided to leave everything that he is supposed to do this morning to come and join our program. We are also grateful to you, Mr. Njai, and thank you for attending the seminar. Today we are gathered to discuss two of the key concerns of the Gambia Press Union with our stakeholders, the political parties. These two key concerns are the safety of journalists and access to information. We know election is approaching, stakes are high, enthusiasm is high, political parties are gearing up, their supporters are also preparing. in the process, as far as the safety analysis of the GPU is concerned, we realize that the environment is not it's not the best friendly for journalists. It's the least friendly for journalists, in other words. And most of the attacks we are seeing, we keep reiterating this thing. Most of the attacks we are seeing against the media since the change of regime, since 2017, more than half of them are perpetrated by political party supporters. And we do know this is happening not because political parties or their supporters hate the media, but we believe perhaps this is because of lack of understanding of each other's roles and responsibility. And how can we discuss to come together to a mutual understanding of our responsibilities? Is to have a seminar like this where we can dialogue. We explain to you how we do our work. Perhaps you can also explain to us how you view us. Together we will agree at a mutual point where by perhaps ahead of the 2021 presidential election, we will begin to see each other as partners. We will begin to see each of our responsibilities as complementary rather than opposing each other's responsibility. When it comes to access to information, which is also one of the key things we will be discussing here, before this seminar, at the start of the project that Mr. Juf referred to, the GPU conducted an analysis of the political parties as far as their access to information or their communication channels are concerned. And it is sad to say that we realize of all the political parties that are registered in the country, not even up to half of them have websites. Not even half of the political parties have websites. And if you look at the access, because our analysis was taking the African Union guideline on access to information and election as a benchmark. And one of the basic tools on the access to information guideline and election that political parties should use to communicate is having a website. A website where their constitution should be available. A website where the other bylaws and regulation of the political parties should be available for their members, but also for the wider public who perhaps are interested in the political party, but they don't have any information. But it is sad that not even half of our political parties have website. Beyond website, when you also look at the guidelines, it's telling political parties to make their regulation available to their members. At least most of the political party supporters and members that we spoke to, more than half of them don't even know the constitution of their respective political parties that they belong to. So this is a problem. And we feel this is a problem not just for journalists, but for the political parties themselves and their supporters, because the parties will look credible on the eyes of the people and their supporters when the people know about the party, when they have access to information about those parties. So we felt this is important that we call the political parties to discuss the research findings with them, to discuss ways and means that they can be more visible, to discuss ways and means that they can have their communication out there in the public for their own interest first, for their own good first, but also inadvertently, it also makes life easy for journalists. Because, I mean, in any democracy, political parties are one of the key stakeholders. But also the media being the watchdog, it is important that we follow the political parties and report on them to make them accountable for what they say and do. But that becomes difficult when we don't have any access to information from the political parties. So as they are making information available to their members, it will also be available to the media. So we thought it's a win-win situation to talk to the political parties, to know the need for access to information from by their members, but also by the media. And one of the ways, like I said, with regards to the safety, one of the ways we can have that done is to have a dialogue, is to have a seminar where these things will be discussed. The political parties, perhaps they have their own reasons why some of these things are not happening. They perhaps have their own constraints, internal constraints why some of these things are happening. But also, we also do know that the GPU and the media have some strengths through which we can guide the political parties to make sure they are more visible. And that's the essence of this forum. So it's basically in two folds, to make sure that we discuss the safety concerns of the Gambia Press Union ahead of the 2021 election, but also to make sure that we point out the deficits as far as their communication, their access to information is concerned. On the same analysis, the IEC, for example, because one of the benchmarks in the African Union guideline on access to information and election is the electoral management body of each country have certain classes of information that they should give out. I must say that the IEC must be commended, because not only do they have a website, but they have a very rich website. Most of the things that the African Union guideline is telling electoral management bodies to do in our country, which is the IEC, the information that they are saying should be available to the public, the IEC already have them available to the public. But not only available, they are proactively available. By that I mean, even before people ask for the information, they are available on the IEC website. The IEC bylaws, the electoral calendar, every other thing or most of the things that the guideline is telling electoral management bodies to make available to the people, the IEC have it on their website. They have a very rich website. This is not just to commend them, but we are telling them to keep up the good work, to keep up the proactive disclosure, because that is the way forward. That is the standard at the level of the African Union, to say that electoral management bodies should make sure that they proactively disclose. And whereas they cannot even proactively disclose, upon request, they should make sure that the information are available. And so far in our research, we did not come across any request for information that has been turned down by the IEC. So we must commend them for the work that they are doing, but we must also urge them to do more. Because as election is approaching, as we approach December, we know there will be a lot of information requests. There will be a lot of demand for information. There will be a lot of urge for information. We want to call on the IEC to make sure that this request for information, this demand for information is met. In essence, we are telling them to continue what they are doing. Because with that, information will be available. And where information is available, it helps to enhance the credibility of election. Because we cannot have a credible election when people don't know what is happening. We cannot have a credible election where information is hoarded. We cannot have a credible election where the election management body, which is the key, perhaps one of the key most stakeholders in any election, is sitting on information without giving it to the people. So we want to call on IEC to continue disseminating the information, and we want to call on them also to make sure, particularly they continue proactively disclosing. Because the key word in the Access to Information Guideline, African Union Access to Information Guideline on election, is proactively disclosure. Proactive disclosure. Of course, like I said, they're doing that. We want to encourage them to continue doing that. Having said that, I want to once again thank all of you for leaving your works, your busy schedules to come and attend this seminar with us. And to once again particularly thank the IEC through the CEO for sending in the most senior delegate of the institution to come and be here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diouf and Mr. Jahate, for those words of encouragement. And representative of political parties, members of the Gambia Press Union, and media practitioners present here. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol respectfully and duly observed. Good morning. First, let me thank the Gambia Press Union for coming up with such a laudable initiative of holding a seminar on safety of journalism or journalists and access to information and election for political parties. This could not have come at a better time than now, when the 2021-2023 electoral cycle has just begun with the conduct of the general registration of voters, to be followed by the December 2021 presidential election, and later a National Assembly elections in 2022, and the subsequent year in 2023, the conduct of the local government election. But please, ladies and gentlemen, before I go further, allow me to delve on the ongoing general voter registration, which I've just commenced on the 29th of May, and presently is going on. This general registration of voters will end on the 11th of July, 2021. My message to the public is, let them go out and register. And when they are registering, let them register at the locality where they have their registration center. They should not leave their communities to go to another community where a registration team is. All the communities have been factored and will be covered before the end of the registration. And further to that, I want to urge everyone that let them restrain from interfering in the registration process. The IEC will not relent on this, and urges everyone to desist and restrain from interfering, because of no one has the right to block or prevent or bar any applicant from registering. The law is very clear. For one to register, you must be a Gambian, you must be a citizen of the Gambia, you must be 18 years or will be 18 years by the date of the next election. And the date of the next election is scheduled to be on the 4th of December 2021. An applicant should also be able to register where he's resident or where he was born. Aside of these things, the law went further to say that for one to be registered, one has to produce any one of the following documents: including a Gambian birth certificate, a Gambian national ID card, a passport, or an attestation signed by an alcalo or district chief of the district or village of the applicant. So any of these documents presented, one should be able to be registered, and no one should stop anyone from going to a registration center to determine his or her citizen. That's not the right of any citizen. The laws are here, the authorities who are responsible are here. We urge everybody to desist from doing that, because we have observed that happening in the past days when we started the registration, and we don't want to get people to be arrested and prosecuted, because at the end of the day, this is politics. It will be interpreted otherwise. Moving on. The Independent Electoral Commission is committed to providing and sharing relevant and up-to-date information to all, including the media. One of the program officers just said it on our website. This is not done because of we are trying to respond to AU, but we are trying to respond to the needs and aspirations of the Gambian populace, more so the voters. This can be attested to by the fact that the IEC issues media releases or press statements, organizes press conferences or briefings, hosts a website, and other social media platforms or accounts, as well as its continuous engagement with the public. For your information, GPU, presently we have an election project with the UNDP. In it, we have an activity that we should conduct for the GPU, and we've been inviting and looking for GPU to be attending our technical meetings as well as the steering committee meeting. And just before we start, I just contacted Mr. Jahate to get his contact, so that subsequently, because I am the chair of that technical working group heading the project, elections project, and many a time GPU don't attend our meetings. I contacted the former Secretary General. At that time, he was on the verge of leaving office. I don't know where the handover was done, but we want, the IEC want the GPU to be attending that technical committee, because there are activities that should be done for you, because as journalists, when you are part and parcel, a major stakeholder of the electoral process, and more so on reporting, and you can only report when you are trained adequately on election matters, because election too has its own language, because rigging and fraudulent may be different, but in normal English could be the same, but in normal parlance may be different. So for your information, we will be expecting you to be attending our technical meeting as and when it's due. But nonetheless, there will be a media center that that's what we are working on now. A media center that we will establish. It will take the shape of a big hall with all these your gadgets, so that all the journalists can walk into that place at any point in time during the run-up to the election and pick the latest news on the elections, without even having to call Mr. Njai or Mr. Koli or Mr. Khan. And some of you may be co-opted to be working for us in that media center. In the same vein, the IEC encourages all political parties to avail information on their activities to the public through the media for people to know. It is not only the IEC that should give information, but the political parties. And I cannot elaborate more, because it is suffice to say that it was engaged in the media by political parties. Those political parties are canvassing for votes and has a manifesto to sell, and the best way to do it is through the media. So I will not go further to that, because you know better, more than what I know when it comes to media and their powerfulness. The media should also endeavor, the media should also endeavor to report fairly, accurately, and without bias on all political parties' activities. We have also seen some media houses are leaning towards one political party against the other. This is not the principle or the fundamental principle of media. A media or a journalist should be independent, should be very fair, should be very accurate, and should not be biased. Please leave out these things from your profession if you want to be worth of your salt, because you cannot say a political party, a tumultuous or a rapturous welcome, or thousands, and another political party say in hundreds. So that alone is bias. Some of the words you use, because we used to host a media monitoring center, we monitor the words you use, we monitor the adjectives you use, we monitor your description, and sometimes it's just telling that you are just biased. I'm not saying that you are biased, but this is what the reports say, and we should avoid these things. The media must verify its information before publishing, as any published information can have a huge impact in society. Whatever you publish can make or break an institution or a sector or a larger community. So you have to be very careful of what you write and what you say or what you report, because you are very powerful and everyone listens to you, because you are the mouth and the ears and everything of other people who cannot access information from institutions. So therefore, be very balanced, fair, and accurate in reporting. And you must always adhere to all these principles. With these few remarks, I wish to thank the GPU for organizing this timely seminar, and I wish you a very fruitful seminar. Thank you very much for your attention.
We've come to the end of the closing, and we'll have to take a group photograph outside before we continue the next session.
government may enjoy in terms of what information to release, the obligation is on the government to justify the refusal. So the government cannot just sit and say, okay, we're not going to give you this information because it is a threat to national security. If we have to accept that, it means for every information that we need from the government, they would use this as a justification. So the access to information law would oblige government to justify their actions. And so if government justifies the actions and citizens are not satisfied with that, there's also a mechanism. An independent body is usually established under the access to information law that is responsible for looking at appeals from citizens whose rights, whose requests have been denied by a particular government institution. So currently Gambia, I think the bill is already, so the access to information law is already before the National Assembly. I understand it's coming up next month, July, for consideration by the Parliament. So all these years, Gambia never had any law on access to information, even though I think we are the last West African English-speaking country that doesn't have this law. So it's quite an important issue. Now, of course, important because you really cannot participate, you cannot vote in an election if you do not have information as to those who are contesting. What is their qualification? What is the mode of acquiring the documents that would enable you to vote, right? So again, it empowers, access to information empowers the electorate and make them well informed about the political processes with regards to their best interest. So if you are well informed as an electorate, it puts you in a better position to have a choice as to which party to vote for and which party not to vote for. Obviously, the parties have to come out, sell their manifesto. But imagine if citizens are not aware of these manifestos. They are not aware of what is the plan for political parties, or for example, they don't even know that the registration of voter process is ongoing. So they wouldn't be in a better, it wouldn't be in a position to know what to do. So that is why access to information is relevant. Again, like I said before, if you have information, like knowledge, we always say knowledge is power, but I think information is power because knowledge is hinged on power. Knowledge is hinged on information. So if you have information, you're always in a position to critique the government. You're always in a position to challenge the government, right? And when you also have information, it gives you the urge to take part in the political process, which is that you know your rights, you know what is the obligation of the government. So if government fails to fulfill its obligation, you're in a position with the information that you have to challenge government to say, you're not doing things right. So that is why access to information is very much relevant to the political discourse generally. And you can, again, for information, for elections to be free, fair, and credible, you know, the electorate must be given the opportunity to access information at all stages of the electoral process. Like I said, before the elections, they need to access information about who is qualified to have a voter's card, who is qualified to be registered, which political leader is qualified to contest, right? During the elections, they need to know what was the voter count, right? Who are the members, who are the eligible members on the voter register, right? And even after elections, how were the collations done? So all this information enables free, fair, and credible elections. But if, like, you can imagine if the issue about the election is shrouded in secrecy, right? It raises a lot of, it can even cause conflict in a country, no doubt about it. But if there is free flow of information coming from all ends, and there is no doubt, of course, there would be success and credibility in the electoral process. Again, you know, absence of access to information, to accurate, credible, and reliable information about ranges of issues prior to and after election is impossible for citizens to meaningfully exercise their right. Again, if citizens don't have information, if they lack information about the electoral process, they definitely wouldn't have the interest to take part in the elections because they don't have the information. But if they have all that it takes, all the information that they would need, you can imagine the advantage that would have in terms of elections. Now we get into the topic proper, which is the AU guidelines, right? So these are it's a guideline that was developed by the African, like I said, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights at its 18th ordinary sessions in Kenya in 2015. A resolution was passed requiring the special rapporteur of the Commission on Freedom of Expression to develop guidelines that would address the absence of a regional standard on access to information and elections as a means of guaranteeing the credibility of elections and the overall strengthening of democratic governance in Africa. There's no doubt in Africa we always have problems with information during elections, accessibility, and so it causes a lot of chaos, and so that necessitated the African Charter on the African Commission on Human Rights to come up with a resolution requiring the special rapporteur to come up with some developments in relation to, you know, having a guideline which would guide member states in terms of accessing information during elections. So then a special rapporteur, Commissioner Ntuluka, embarked on the process of developing draft guidelines with support from the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. And in May 2016, the first series of expert meetings was held, bringing together African, experts on access to information on how to develop the guideline, right? So the expert, that were tasked with the developing the draft came up with one, and at the 6th to the commission again, right? So as the process goes on, there were consultations, right? Some regional consultations were made in Maputo and also in Nairobi for the guidelines to be reviewed. And again, the African Commission itself also made its comment, and the document was made available to the public, and more people commented about what the guidelines were all about. And in November 2017, in Gambia here, at the 61 ordinary session, the draft was finally presented to the session, and it was adopted, as accepted by all the member states, right? So, what was the rationale and objective of, or what is the rationale and objective of the guideline? Now, because of the experiences that, like I said, we have in Africa, in terms of the dangers that are associated with lack of information during election, really poses threat to our security, our peace, stability, and as a result, there has to be, there has to be a solution to this effect, right? Because of the absence of an accepted international legislation, I mean regional legislation in terms of access to information, there was a need to develop these guidelines, and because lack of information has caused, destabilized countries, had challenges to security. So there was a need for the AU, the African Commission on Human and People Rights, to come up with something, at least a solution to that problem. And again, it just don't provide the framework, but it also, at the heart of it, is the whole issue of proactive disclosure. That is, all the stakeholders, all the relevant stakeholders, which we'll identify later, have an obligation to proactively disclose information. That is, to give out information to the public without necessarily waiting for a request to be made by a particular individual. So in that way, it will foster accountability. It will foster transparency in the election process, because everyone would be aware. For example, on the appointment of electoral members, it will be very clear as to who is qualified and who is not qualified. And some people are in a position to challenge government if they are wrong. If IEC also publishes its mode of operation, everyone in the country would know, if you have information about what the IEC is up to. If civil society organizations also give information to the public as to how they will operate during the elections, it makes life easy for everyone. Again, the media also, who are also major stakeholders in the process, would also, be required to proactively disclose information. Charter, right? So the state, again, states are obliged to ensure that all stakeholders in the electoral process fulfill their responsibilities. So we'll identify who these stakeholders are in this process. So again, the purpose
most political parties, when it comes to internal democracy, it's just a name, but practically it is not happening. You know, it's mostly a one-man show. What the leader says or what the leader wants, this is what exists. So people embrace that. When we go out there in the public, we make a lot of noise. But internally, it's a one-man show. You know, in as much as some political parties are talking about system change, but I believe it should begin with within, especially when it comes to empowering women and youths and people with disabilities. How many political parties are championing that? But we could have it written on paper, but practically they're not existing. So I believe the IEC has a role to regulate how political parties operate, because they give them the green light. You could exist or operate as a political party. But it shouldn't be a free ride. They should hold them to task. Make sure that they deliver, because being a political party, especially when we say government in waiting, you want to take over this country. What are you giving at this moment? Practically, what is happening at your party? That is very important. You cannot exist just by name or waiting for coalition or alliances. I recall in one of the validation workshops when the IEC proposed that any political party that doesn't put up a candidate for the presidency for 2 consecutive elections will be banned. It was an outcry, no, you cannot ban us. Why you form a political party when you're not willing to put up a presidential candidate? Is it for business? So these issues need to be looked at and regulated. It makes no use having 18 political parties. When it comes to contesting elections, only 2 or 3 will put up candidates. That cannot continue. At least if you put up this one, the next one you could lose. But continuously, you will never put up a candidate. Then why the need for that political party?
Nigeria has a similar system. Nigeria, I think there are certain conditions. If you don't meet them, they will register the party.
Of course.
Sidigas, our NUP. I think I want to join my colleagues, but with the financial reporting, like at Congress, of course, I think that should happen, but that should entail your spending of your funds, but not exposing your source of funding, because you see, we have to be mindful. Almost all political parties here are supported by businessmen in most cases. And these business people, they are doing business. They support all parties in expectation that if they win, maybe if for something. So if you want to disclose your source of funding, you know, most probably all parties will cease getting funds from those people. Because then you have to reveal Mr. X has sponsored this party, and again he has sponsored another party. So they will not want to go in for that. But for laying your financial report at your Congress, that is required by IEC. And I think that should happen. Also the operations also, like all parties should have structures. You know, I think this should also, IEC should emphasize this as well. Like Dudu has said, also let's say, political parties, 18, how many are going to put up candidates? We don't have to put up political parties just to get some funds. The aim is to contest elections. That should be our, because when registering, the purpose is to contest elections. That's one of your cardinal pillars. So why are you not contesting elections? Once you are registered, that's it. You don't care about elections again. So I don't think you are fulfilling that requirement, and IEC should take that by seriously.
Officer of the National Constitutional Party, NRP. Thank you for giving me the floor once again. I just want to deal with the issue of political parties. To me, once a political party is registered, it's the same as any other party, whether you are a ruling party, in the eyes of the IEC and in the eyes of the law, you are government in waiting, you are equal with any other party, whether you ruling or not. It is left to the electorates. It is only the electorates who will determine which party is big or not you as the party leader or you as a party executive member. By having sent 10,000 signatories to make you to register, you can't say that party is not existing, and you can't say that party must contest elections in presidential. Election is a process. It's not only contesting presidential elections. Right now, registration, we are in registration, which is a process as well. Registering a political party is a process. Going to parliamentary election is elections. Going to local government elections is elections. It doesn't mean that in many countries, in UK, in America, in South Africa, how many parties are there? How many parties are contesting elections? We are trying to say is where democracy was born. How many parties are contesting for prime minister or contesting for presidential in America? How many parties are registered in America?
Well, it's only 2 parties in America.
How many parties? Just wait. There are minor parties. You understand? In all over the world, that there are parties. If you want to contest elections, you can contest elections. Presidential. It doesn't mean that you did not contest presidential. You may not contest parliamentary elections. And let parties not start to accuse parties that have just registered. We don't know the fate of the Gambian people. We don't know. We are only trying to say that yes, through experience. Yes, you contested last presidential or you have been contesting presidential elections. You know how much votes you acquired. But you cannot determine how many votes are you going to get this coming elections. And you cannot, the Gambian people can change their mind at any time. They own themselves. Let's not speak here as my party is bigger than any other party. No. To me, I see all parties, I respect all parties as big parties as my party. As big as my party. That's all. Thank you very much.
Let's move. Yes. I think, to be clear, I haven't had anybody accuse anybody, and people are entitled to their opinion. But then again, the facts remain the same. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you see it or you don't see it, the facts are the facts, and nobody can distort it. And we shouldn't try to distort the facts for our own interest or the interest of the people we align with or we support. The bottom line of what we are saying, I think the purpose of this discussion is to highlight the shortfalls and look for a way forward that we can remedy it for it to be correct, to be right. And I think we all acknowledge there are shortfalls that we need to highlight and correct. And it cuts across. It's not only political parties. And if we want to highlight the shortfall, I think we have a lot to talk about the IEC, who are the referees here. At the end of the day, wrong is wrong, correct is correct, okay? And IEC, they're the referees. I mean, their guidelines that IEC have put across. No political party is going to tell you that they don't know that it's a requirement for you to have regional representation when you are registered with the IEC. We know it, but do we abide by it? Maybe not all political parties. Why? Because there are no consequences. The IEC are not doing their job to follow up to see that everybody is meeting up to the requirements. But it's not to say that it's not there or we don't know. We know. But then if IEC was really following through to ensure that once you are registered, everything you're supposed to do within a time frame, because they're not saying that you have to have it before you register, but when you register within a time frame, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do it. But they're not following through. So people are not really keeping up to those requirements or meeting those exactly. So at the end of the day, people are reliable. But if IEC was following through and making sure if you don't meet up those requirements, whatever the consequences, they really put it forward. People will learn and people will avoid it, because if you get registered, nobody wants to be banned. Nobody wants to be deregistered after paying your 1 million or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you canvass and get the 10,000 votes and register at a political party, you know what is expected of you as a party. You should live up to it. Just registering and living balang like that for 2 years, 3 years, 3 years, 4 years, hanging on other people's back, I don't think we should call that a political party, and you should really check yourself out. And again, we really need to raise the bar, the standard, not only sticking to it for years and years and years, or even trying to lower it. And that's what I see happening in this country. And we have people thinking it's okay because it favors them. We need to raise the bar. And when people are talking about raising the bar, raising the standard, trying to rise above certain levels, let's embrace it and not think it's a criticism or because we are opposition. Anybody that is not a ruling government, so to say, you're opposition because you're looking at getting there. And when you talk, it's not opposing, you criticize, and most of the criticisms are constructive. And of course, it only takes the eye of somebody who is not a certain government to see certain things. When you're there, you're so comfortable. You think you are it, you have it all. So certain things you really overlook, not maybe intentionally, but you overlook it because you don't have the time, or maybe it's not to your interest, because we see people only follow up or address things that are of their interest. So really, I think we should think outside the box. Yes, we are different political parties, but there are certain things that are really common. The language of business is professionalism, and it cuts across the board. It doesn't matter you are selling gerte or churai or kobo or jen, it's professionalism. That's the language of business. So we are all political parties. What our commonalities are more than our differences. At the end of the day, what we're looking at is the presidency, which is a common thing, and the way to get to the presidency transparency, it's professionalism, and it cuts across the board. It doesn't matter where you are NPP, you are APRC, you are UDP, you are CA, you are NCP. That's the language that we need to follow. So we take it among ourselves because it's to our advantage. We try to distort it, make it to our advantage, make it a way that it favors us. It doesn't change the fact that that is what it requires, and that's what we're talking about. So let's really be open-minded and not be offensive or take things personally and thinking we're attacking. No. If it affects a certain party, I think it's the thing you need to do is accept it and in good faith and try to correct it and work towards it, but not to think, okay, all of their work, bokuma ci mo gën du man kena. Su baaxut soo si bokkee taraaya nga génn ci waaye because of bokk nga ci rek nga think ne lu baax la baaxut.
Yeah, I think that is in fact the purpose of these guidelines. Is to raise the bar, is to have a standard. Let me finish. I think Segu is already here. Let me just finish with this presentation, then we can have a final session on question and answers. The guideline is to put a standard for all governments to say that in your countries, this is what political parties should do. This is what civil society should do. So this presentation is just on political parties, but we've listed 10 other stakeholders, right? So now we are looking at the government itself. What should the government do in terms of disclosing information? Because government usually is the one that is responsible for appointing the election management body, which is the IEC, right? So the state parties are to ensure that that is the government are to ensure that the process for the selection and appointment of members of the electoral management body is clearly stipulated in law, and it is transparent, widely publicized, and allows public participation. So I think this is clear. There should be a law. The law should outline who is qualified to contest, to be appointed as a member of, let's say, for example, the IEC. The nomination process should be transparent. It should be widely published, and public participation should also be encouraged. In some countries, in fact, once the nomination is done by the president, the individual goes to the parliament for vetting. And in that vetting process, the public is asked to participate. You are asked to submit memorandum. For example, certain bodies are asked to submit memorandums. If anyone has any objection to the individual, you are allowed to bring it before the vetting committee for them to look at that evidence. So that is very progressive. So that is also required by the guidelines. Again, the government is obliged to publish the mode criteria process of appointment of members, including certain considerations such as gender balance, qualification, and experience. Right? They're also required to publish the appointing process of the members, their remuneration, conditions of service, and the procedure for the termination of members, which is also very important. We know under our law is the president who has the power to to appoint, let's say, for example, the chairperson of the IEC. Again, in terms of the termination, it should be made. The law provides for it, but I think also there is a need to adjust our law so that when the chairman is to be if some commissioners, right, are to be nominated, right, and so the names should be submitted to the parliament for parliament to vet. That in that way it gives the whole country the opportunity to check whether these are people who are credible to be even commissioners in the first place. So that is what is anticipated under the guidelines. Again, in terms of further obligations on the government, the government is required to adopt legislative, administrative, judicial, and other measures to give effect to these guidelines. I don't know how far we have gone with that as a country. Also, the government is also required to facilitate dissemination of these guidelines to all stakeholders in the process, including the parliament, the judiciary, the national human rights institutions, and even the electorate. Again, government should ensure that the electoral stakeholders are trained in relation to the content of the guideline, and they are to also ensure that in each periodic report it submits to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights that it provide detailed information on the measures that are taken to facilitate compliance with the provisions of the guideline. I have not read the elections bill, so I don't know whether this guideline has been captured in it. But I mean that's all for the guidelines, and I think for me, generally, I think it's a very progressive document, and I think Gambia needs to adopt these guidelines because it's an international standard in the sense that all the 54 countries in Africa have accepted these guidelines. They have adopted it here in Banjul. I think it was the Karaba Beach Hotel. So it's a progressive document. It provides a legal framework, for the government to ensure that there is access to information before, during, for elections. And it's for the benefit of not just the political parties, but also the electorates, because once electorates are aware and have information about the electoral process, you can imagine the success of an election. Again, we will all agree that we have a problem in this country in terms of election apathy. Is it that people don't have enough information about election process, that is why they don't vote? That's a huge question that we need to answer. So with that, I thank you very much. If you have any further, Mr. So, you know, the jazz like food, so.
Okay, Mr. So, thank you very much for the presentation.
Yeah.
I think it is really a very good guideline to govern our electoral process system.
Yeah.
And if really adopted by the Gambia, we should really adhere to that rule.
Yeah.
But as the previous speakers earlier mentioned, it is very saddening to see that we will have all the best guidelines in action, but they are not implemented. The implementation process is always a challenge in Africa, per se. Coming back to IEC as a body, and then different political parties right now are registering. I think the challenge here is IEC to come up with a framework, a framework that, entails a system that all political parties should operate. Because any political party, you must go through a requirement to register. And that requirement, if any political party do not meet that requirement, you can't be registered. So if you are registered also, there is a need for that operation to be put in a framework in which IEC should have the opportunity to look at that in detail and monitor and audit those political parties. Because one will ask, why are we having every day new political party? Somebody may ask, okay, looking at all the political parties that exist in the Gambia, you might only see one leader throughout all those political leaders, all the political parties. It's only one leader throughout, persistently going on. What is going on in that political party structure? Because if there's a good structured political party, when somebody contested 2-3 times and fall down, there should be an opportunity for somebody within that political party to take up the responsibility for the leadership mantle. But that's not existing in the Gambia. So people are attached to one leader for one political party. And that may also even encourage Gambians to say, okay, I might not even go into this political party. Let me make my own political party. You see, so there is IEC has a responsibility in this, in order to provide a guidelines, an operation in which each and every political party should adhere, and they will be looked into those activities if they are going through within all the regions. So if that happened, in Senegal here, if you could remember, Youssou N'Dour even went in for election. But finally, they have their proceeding, they have their system in place after all those people were taken out of the system. So there must be an operation, there must be a system in terms of selecting a leader, in terms of their operation, in terms of how long a leader should be within that political party or contest. So if that framework is there, Gambian will be, comfortable to say, okay, I don't need to form my political party. I think it is very wise to join this political party because there's a future for me. There's an opportunity for me to be taking care of the next, electoral process. So that is the thing that, IEC, we really need to look into and provide a better guideline.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation that has to begin from the political parties, right? So conversation that political parties need to have with the IEC. That's the problem with this country. We don't converse. We don't talk, right? Because the moment we begin to exchange ideas, the moment we begin to accept the fault that we have, we begin to understand that we are far behind time as a country, and not just as in the electoral cycle, but in almost everything that we have. Like Nene said, we need to raise the bar.
Sure.
And the only way we can do that, we have to look at the best practices in other countries. And not just that, even the guidelines that are developed by EU, these are guidelines that were looked into by experts, respected experts, including some Gambians. So it provides the best practice that we can have. But if we are comfortable in our different corners with what we have in the Gambia, really the Gambian standard is not the best of standards. So the conversation has to begin from here, from this room, the political parties. We need to have a conversation around whether we need to have standards in our system. And in that way, IEC will be pushed to do what is needful. But if all political parties are relaxed, you can imagine what will happen. They will also not feel very comfortable to even push, even government will not be pushed to come up with these standards. And I know that we need to have a framework either around access to information in elections or financial matters in relation to political parties. So it's a whole conversation is needed there. I think this country, we need to have a sit-down national conference on every other issue that we may have. So when we discuss, we can sort out issues. But if we all keep to ourselves the little ideas that we have, we wouldn't make any headway, really. Okay.
I met you almost wrong, but I just want to be back on what my brother just said. Regarding regarding the conversation that you are trying to promote, it is a responsibility of the inter-party committee because now that we have a full functioning inter-party committee, I think it's high time for the inter-party committee to engage leaders regarding the IEC developing such a kind of a framework to ensure that there will be equal opportunities. I am beginning to be happy over certain issues, like the inter-party coming up, women participation in politics, developing policies, and quota system for women to participate in politics, inclusivity and diversity. And these are issues, if when raised, political parties will be able to adopt within their inter-party structures, whereas everybody will be given the opportunity to vie for the office. Even a secretary general or a party leader happens to, contest for 2 or 3 elections and happen to lose, there will be another opportunity for someone to come up and take the responsibility. I think it has to start with the inter-party committee. The inter-party committee is the apex body, the apex decision-making body for all political parties, where all political parties have representations. I think the inter-party can take this responsibility to ensure that they develop a sort of a kind of dialogue for political party leaders to ensure that we have this in our structures, whereas everybody has the opportunity to vie for that very position. So there will be limitations for other political parties to come up. Because if I knew that I share the same principle with you as a political party, there is no need for me to have my own political party, in as much as I know that I have equal opportunity in that party. But in the moment I see myself as a stranger in that party, I will not be able to actually qualify to do certain executions of my duty. So it's important that political parties embrace the inclusivity, diversity of people coming up on board to ensure that they have equal opportunity within the inter-party structures. Thank you.
What I would like to say is there are credible political parties and parties which are not credible at all. As they all the time says at introduction, my name is Mr. Hussein Mboub, and I'm the Regional Secretary for UDP, KMC. Just to add on to what he has said, there are credible political parties like my party, and there are also political parties which are not credible at all. Just like the saying, they say that there is no big political party. I accept that. You might not accept that there's a big political party, but you will accept that there are credible political parties in this country, which has been there in the political arena for quite a long time. Because if you observe now the registration centers, you will observe that there are parties which are not definitely interested in this coming up election, because they don't have candidates at all. They don't have agents. Then how credible are they to register as a political party? That's a big question we have to ask. Just go around and see. They don't have no agents to observe the process that is going on, the registration, which is another question. So that is why what we're saying is very, very important. IEC have to make sure that they have to come up with mechanism, guidelines, which is going to be a framework for all political parties to follow, to make sure that, they have a responsibility at hand. It is not like an individual responsibility. The Gambia is 53 years of independence. there are certain things definitely we should definitely put at our back. Mechanisms have to be in place, governing mechanisms. Because how many years IEC has been existing by now? But what has happened this year in registering of political parties is definitely unacceptable. Definitely. And they are not up to the task to take up the responsibility. When you look around, you will see to it that most of their registration is centered on self-interest. Definitely. So the truth to be told, we have to look at ourselves and know that Gambia is our Gambia. Whatsoever we have to do, we have to make sure that it based on the interests of the nation. Definitely. This is my opinion.
I think I don't have much to say. You've all said it all. I just want to throw a little bit light on what we are discussing here. And I want to start with you for wanting to go now. Well, I think it's a common thing with us that when we call for a discussion or let's say a press conference or a seminar or anything that has to do with us putting up a particular document or discussing a particular issue, we will just, you know, have the first phase of it, you know, take pictures, and then the most relevant people who are really needed for that issue will have to go, and then the others will remain behind. I don't understand that. Like, is it part of the constitution that the system should continue like this? Like, because most of the things we are discussing here, the IEC should have been present to hear this. Though they might get the information, it will send, but getting it from the person who is delivering it, like the first-hand information, would be different from having it written and being processed and then, you know, have to go through some professionalities and then pass to them or documented. So I think if we really want to get the change we are looking for, it has to start with the way we plan things and the way we work the process. Because like every issue or every comment that I'm hearing here should have been, you know, directed directly to the IEC. I'm not blaming them though. I'm not saying they are to be blamed for anything. But it's important that they hear what we are saying. It's important that they stay to the end to get the results of what is going on here. I'm not saying them, I'm only giving them as an example because they are not the only ones that left after we started. But I think it's a common thing because I've been attending so many meetings and gatherings and all that, and it's the same procedure. We might start late and then, you know, take pictures and then disperse. And then the end part. So I think this is the reason why most of the challenges that we discuss and try to find solutions, they don't go far. They get stuck somewhere because there is no follow-up, and the process started in a very negligent way. Sorry, I'm just being straightforward. But I think this is one of the challenges, and this is one of the reasons why most of the things we agree on to make changes don't go further. Because we don't do it the proper way. We all have our engagements, but I think it was announced that this day was supposed to be set aside for a particular reason or to discuss this and that. So I think any other engagement you have to, like you can, you know, assign someone to assist you there and you be present from the beginning to the end to get all the information that is supposed to come out of that. And then have a proper process of the whole itinerary, and then we all disperse. But then having to go halfway or just at the beginning and then you leave, and I really don't understand this though. But anyway, my contribution would be, in addition to what the gentleman was saying right there, I think we all need to be more controversial when it comes to national issues and not to you know, put it on one head. Like, it's our responsibility. So if I know that this particular issue concerns me or is my responsibility, like, can do they have new oko ansenkir? We all know that danyu wara boka si bol bi ñu añ. So this is a common thing with national issue. Ñun ñepp ko boka. You don't wait to be called or to be told to join in or to play your quota or to play your role. It's our responsibility. So I think it's necessary we all come on board and join hands together and make a way forward. This is all I have.
Yeah. So,
spokesperson and director of media, APRC.
Okay. What is your view on today's seminar?
Very important. It's not the first, and I hope it's not going to be the last. It's important for us to bridge the gap between the media and the political parties. Like, we both need each other. So if there are issues arising, this is the right platform to talk about it and to address these issues.
Now, we have seen the seminar is centered on access to information and the safety of journalists. Now that the political or the elections is just few months to elections, and we know a lot of journalists face this kind of maltreatment, harassment by political parties. What is going to be your advice to the general public, especially your political parties?
Like I said earlier, this is very important. I think from here we will find out why and some of the reasons it's really happening. But for me, that gap could be bridged, like when we have a dialogue, when we discuss. And I believe sometimes each of us has a right. Where a right stops, that's where somebody else is beginning. And that has to be recognized. What I would say, when it comes to journalism, there are some who feel they're untouchable, like they could do whatever they please. And there are political parties who feel, no, here is a no-go area. And unless and until we sit and discuss and iron things out, I believe it will continue to happen. But my advice to the public is it doesn't have to happen at all. Journalists are humans like us. They're not perfect in what they execute. In cases whereby there are mistakes, in what they do, how they execute it, we need to engage them and try to rectify the wrongs. We definitely don't need to take the law into our own hands. I believe nobody has a right to harass any journalist, or to threaten their life. They're just doing their job. They're professionals, but they're not perfect. We have to understand that. And in life, nobody is perfect. Us as political parties as well, like they're talking about access to information. I don't think that's actually the big deal here as we speak. But what I believe is there are certain parties or individuals who don't like the discussing at all. Be it giving information is one thing. At times journalists would want to make follow-up to issues that they're hearing, misconceptions, allegations, etc. They would need clarity, and that is to the interest of that individual or that group or a political party, because the public out there, like, whatever information they hear, most people are going to believe it. I, for one, I don't believe in fake news. You would term it as fake because you know the facts, but for somebody else, it's information to them. So, but the media houses, journalists are helping us a great deal reach out to the public to clarify issues. So we should give them a thumbs up, but not to take them as enemies.
Now, Mr. Jah, we have seen during the past region which you belong to, there were a lot of atrocities against journalists. Now that you guys are still looking for space to run for elections and then to be appointed as a government, are we going to see these things happening or repeating itself again?
We should always learn from the past. Whatever we feel wasn't right, I think we should try to rectify the wrongs. But the question to ask is, we had a lot of journalists in this country. Some of them have been existing since the PPP government and not been harassed for once. Like I said, some journalists feel like they're untouchable. In as much as you're a journalist, you should be professional. For instance, you cannot be against a government. It's your right not to support a government, but going against a government, to the extent alleging certain information, for me, that's definitely not professional. And every journalist should desist from that. Get the facts. Even when people give you stories, verify your stories before you publish them. But when you show a government or a political party or an entity that I am out, to bring you down. Some people hide behind journalism, but they belong to a political party. And in order to promote the ideas of that political party, they feel they have to attack another party. So that's not professionalism for me at all. But generally speaking, for me, I believe no journalist should be harassed. They should be protected. Like I said earlier, they're not perfect. With those weaknesses, we should even help them improve on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Exile, of course, as in attacks happened where houses of journalists were burned, media houses burned, those things happened here in the past, you know. And in the midst of all that, so we know.
You didn't give an example of exile.
Exile?
Yeah.
Between 1994 and 2017, we had more than 20% of practicing journalists, Gambian journalists, had to leave for exile. More than 20%. That's a huge number. And amongst them, we say we're the best ones. Those that are flat.
Example yourself.
No, I didn't move anywhere. I'm Jammeh, remember? Jammeh's going to send Jammeh away. I didn't move, you know. Yeah, so about 20%, and amongst them were the best ones, you know. Yeah, amongst them were the best ones. It was really hard, and I usually tell people, you know, a lot of the times, a lot of you would like to complain about, okay, the quality that we have in journalism in the Gambia is quite horrible. Why aren't journalists in the Gambia writing like the way journalists in the UK or in Nigeria are writing? Different history, actually. And what happened to journalists in the Gambia happened here, under this sun. We all kept quiet about it. What was happening? We had been killed, we had been tortured, we had been attacked. And everyone kept quiet about it. To a point that 20% had to leave. And these are some of the most qualified that you could have. And those that have not left the country, they've opted for other professions. And they were so good. And that's why newsrooms have to go to the classrooms now to recruit young people to come and join. I am part of the batch. They had to go to the classrooms to go and recruit young people to come and do journalism. Because no one was doing journalism. If you want to do journalism, the first thing your parents tell you is, are you really crazy? You want to kill yourself? Don't put me in trouble. You don't want to do it. So that's why we have some of the quality challenges that are really happening in the Gambia, because there's a generational gap. If you go to Nigeria, or Ghana, or Senegal, at my age, you wouldn't find someone having the position that I held in the Gambia. Probably someone a little bit above my generation. But in the Gambia, there's a generational gap between those that we call the veterans and those that are in charge. Those that are between me and the likes of Samsa, the likes of Swaibo, the likes of Peter, they've literally all disappeared. So some of us, when we came, we couldn't even have proper mentorship. And the story is really sad. So that's what happened with Exile, actually. And that's some of the impacts that it has. But we know it all started in March. Under this new government, for example, where is NPP or where is UDP and RPP? When did you guys come into power? Was it February that you was in? No, I mean coalition, all of you. That's what I mean. That's why I say UDP. Maybe a part of it. Maybe a part of it. Yeah, that's right. You know, you're part of it. So anything that anything that happens, something that you're part of, anything that is here. Collective responsibility, you know? And in fact, not just you being in party. Keba Jaffa here, March. I was asking, when did you come to power? Keba Jaffa here was attacked in March. You came to power in February. Koro was sworn in February. In March, Keba Jaffa was attacked. He was rough-handled. His shot, you see, his shot, he was attacked. In a GPU shot, even in a GPU shot. This was the time when you're from GDC. The GMC, when my father was telling Ali Musara, I sacked you as spokesperson. When you have this time, you know what, you remember those days?
Yes.
Aha! I sacked you as spokesperson. I sacked you. Ali Musara, I sacked you. Who is my Is it light or what? But what happened in this particular case was that this gentleman was attacked because he was reporting for foreign. And he went there for coverage and then they pointed at him. like, okay, Halibasara didn't know. And that's exactly how they said, Halibasara didn't know. They went after him. Because he was asking some questions. We called some party leaders, including Dabo and Ham and Mike. Mike came, we had discussion. He came out public to apologize in full view of cameras. Your party was never interested in issuing a statement. Not even an apology to the guy, apology today. And your party, the same thing. Your party military, right in front of you, like they could say in front of my eyes. You said now it's my back. In front of your, They said what? There were different incidents I'm talking about.
I was asked about it. So you say what happened?
Seriously? But I say your party never apologized. You even never acknowledged the wrongdoing.
Yeah, that happened.
Not even to acknowledge it. No, you don't apologize to me.
So I just want to add, in this case, what was rather unfortunate is that Peter was being seen as a PJIS militant.
Yes.
But the truth is that he is not a member, he is not registered with PJIS, he was only working with programs. And he is not a PJIS militant. And what that led to him even leaving Korea for Chronicle, because he don't want to be seen as a party militant when he is not. Not everyone working with Korea is a party, a member of the party. MS Ba and the others, they are not part of it. They don't even attend their events. You know, so the concept that we have as competing parties, you know, we begin to see journalists who are independent, but they are working with certain organizations that are affiliated to some party that, in quote, they are members of them. It's wrong. And the moment we start bringing in the elders and saying things like this, Alifala Dindino and those kind of stuff, it incites your followers, you as a leader, you know, to attack the journalists, which is wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
My point is, it doesn't matter even if Ning Halifala Dindingolen. That doesn't give you the right to violate the person or to attack the person. Yeah. It doesn't matter if he is Halifala Dindingo or not.
Yes.
Like, we all have rights to our opinion. So you can oppose me, but you cannot attack me. That does not give you the right to do that. So I really don't get the point why one should be attacked because you have a different perspective or because they see you as an opposition.
I'm inclined to tell all journalists to vote for GDC.
Oh.
That is beware party leader. And that's amazing. Yes, but
okay, thank you very much. I think such discrimination, most of us has faced that because not only with what is happening now, but it has been happening.
Yes.
Because I remember, you all know I was a foreign reporter.
Yes.
And actually for me, I was supporting the party. I was a party militant. And I was writing for foreign. But there has never been any case in which I was asked or I wrote a story where I was invited by police for writing when it comes to politics. And I used to be attached to many political parties.
Yes.
I used to be attached to cover APRC activities.
Yes.
UDP activities.
Yes.
Among other parties, we are very active at the time. But my stories were never seen as biased. You understand? I was putting on two caps. All the time I will tell people, if I'm for journalism, I'm entirely for journalists. If I'm there to support your party activities or programs, I'm there for party activities or programs. You understand? So with what happens with Keba or whatsoever really being regretted. And I think we were on the level of condemning and our party level. To be honest, we had a meeting, we had an executive meeting regarding this issue. You think what happened at Janjamur, I could remember. Something happened
this happened in Manjaki.
You understand? When the president was stabbed. You understand? So we condemn it, to be honest, with attacks of people, not only journalists.
But you didn't condemn this particular one.
We condemn it at the executive level.
Let's go. This is where we understand that. I'm not going to friend request for the minutes of the executive meeting, I swear. Let's go. But what we are saying is, even on presidential stores, that's the GPU president speaking. Even on president's stores, journalists are being attacked. I mean, this is serious war. I mean, people feel that they have, people just feel that they have the power over other people, and they attack them. And these are people that belong to political parties, and they are following party leaders. That's not what civilized people do. That's not what democracies do. That's what happens in a jungle. You just feel that you have power over me, and then you disagree with me, and you attack me. And just recently we said, how do you call it? A state house program, attacking a journalist. These are two media people. Yeah, or you? Yeah. Versus these are two media people. But when you look at this whole thing, you realize it has to do with someone feeling that he has the power. Because the mere fact that a state house photographer will dare to attack a fellow journalist is because he feels that the badge that he wears, the presidential badge, gives him the power to attack a fellow journalist. Why? What's happening? Just because you disagree with people? Yes?
The issue of presidency and then his people in such situations should be the thing that people need to be addressed.
Yeah.
I, for example, went with the president on a nationwide, and that particular young person, or that particular person that was involved in an incident in Gaji, threatened us.
So it was not the first time?
It was not the first time. Yeah. But, you know, certain things like young people like us are there just to work. We are not there just because they see us as like enemies to them. And journalists, we are just doing our work. Even though at times our writings or whatever we are saying will not be related to what they want, but it's our job. But I think this education, people need to be educated and sensitized when with regards to journalists executing their function.
Absolutely. Your party militants will look at journalists, they will assault them verbally. They will assault them physically, and then you condone that.
They never assault anybody else.
When you look at it now, they are saying, okay. When you look at the situation, they will say, okay, now the environment has improved, the environment has improved. It's true. The environment has improved quite a lot. But then, how has it improved? When you have a case of impunity, where we're talking about 16, 17 journalists that were physically attacked, and some got injured, and nothing is done about it. That's the GPU executive there, meeting the IGP. For those of us that say, okay, it should be treated like any other case, because there is nothing extraordinary about being a journalist, that's fine. But the situation is, the question is, why is it that when it comes to assault on journalists, it is different? For lack of action. If another person gets attacked, the police take action, no? Why is it that when the journalists get attacked, they wouldn't take any action? And we, as a union, will go the extra mile to go to them and tell them this is what is happening. Why are you not taking action? And we will have promises. Promises that will never be fulfilled. This was when we were there when Louis, you know, the guy on the left, he works for GRS when he was attacked in Jinga. You know, we went to him, and the GRS camera still hasn't been recovered. This guy had to run for his life.
Was it the funeral?
Yeah.
The Aswami Bojan funeral?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
He had to run for his life. So it was really
Today's publication with the standard, did you go through it?
What today's publication?
Regarding the report that was written about these 5 people arrested where police and the standard have to...
Oh, I have not read papers today.
And the standard have to, I don't excuse the reporter for duties. Is that really helping? Because if the media houses started treating their fellow journalists whom they are sending in the field because of maybe writing something that is not in line with the policy, you understand? That warrant that media house to hold that person, exclude that person from duties.
No journalist is allowed.
So where is the safety? No, where is the safety of the journalist? Now, if there is no one to stand for that journalist, what is going to be the end result?
Let's not digress. But for me, is to say that no journalist, no reporter, under any circumstance, is allowed to deliberately bring to a media house that is credible, that claims to be truthful. You bring to the paper information that you deliberately may be fabricated, and you know it to be false, and then you give it to them. No media house tolerates that. It's no media house tolerates that. We understand the concept of truth in journalism to be not the gospel truth. There is what is called journalistic truth. That is, a journalist gets facts and make efforts to verify it. What the journalist gets in the end may be true, may not be true, may even be half truth. But then everyone should be satisfied with your work in the knowledge that you have taken some extra work to bring the truth. Because the truth, at the end of the day, we cannot at all times agree on what is the truth, what is true. We cannot. You may see this paper as white. I may see it as red. And I have right to see it as red. That's the thing. So if the standard takes that action, I think they are within their right. After all, every paper has its standards and its policies. And if reporters don't meet those standards, and if they violate those policies, there are simple consequences.
But you know, most times, can I just comment quickly? Most times it's like we shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
And if we have this understanding that journalists are messengers, most of the times maybe they're, when incidents happen, either they're there, it happened in their presence, or they're there after the fact.
Yes.
So basically when they're there after the fact, they can only report based on interactions they've done with people who claim to have been there. Because if I'm a journalist, I come to an incident like something happened in this room, and then I was alerted, I show up, everything has happened, maybe there will be just the after effect. Now I start to interview people, and then I interview her, and it's like, okay, when I was there, this is what has happened, this is what has happened. You know, I'm going to report as based on what she's told me. Now, is she telling me exactly the truth, or is she missing something? At that point in time, I cannot even verify, because at the end of the day now, it's up to her what she told me, that's what I'm reporting. But again, if she tells me I report, everybody bounce on me, oh, you're telling the lie, that's not the truth, you were not there, were you there? Journalists cannot be everywhere. Everything that they report, it's not a matter of they were there, they had first-hand information. So I think also us, you know, who listen to them or who read their articles and things like that, we kind of forget about that. And always look at them with this eyes. As when they report something, if it's favorable to me, I say, Seku Numbahe. Seku is very smart. Seku is very intelligent. Seku is a nice guy. But if that, whatever Seku has reported, maybe another incident, the same Seku that I, you know, was saying, hallelujah, hallelujah. Seku reported something that seemed, not even actually, the fact, but seemed in my own view to be against me or not in line with what I believe. Speaking from the two sides of my mouth. Crucify him, crucify him.
Absolutely.
We see that happen all the time. It's not a matter of you, it's a matter of what you bring. I mean, you guys are just messengers. And you report. Without you, there's so many things that we will miss because we're not journalists. We cannot be everywhere at every point in time. So it's because of the journalists that we're able to be privy to certain information, to things that are going on. So for me, honestly, it's like a partnership. Definitely. I will not criticize or vilify any media house. Even when you say something against me, I just take it, well, that's your finding. That is the information that was brought to you. Or that is your own point of view or your analysis.
Is it the truth? Maybe not. Is it going to be the truth? Maybe not. Is it going to change any further? Absolutely not. But I will respect your reporting. I will respect what you give, and maybe sometimes I will read it in a different way that I see it. So it's just people thinking outside the box, having the open-mindedness, and not just being too partisan and being too consumed into issues and be so emotional that it has to be reported the way I want it, or sugarcoated, or whatever. You know, so coming to your defense a little bit, but of course sometimes I go after you.
That's why you speak darlings.
It's like this particular incident was picked up from a WhatsApp audio. I did listen to the audio, and it's becoming common with some journalists. They just listen to WhatsApp audios and they're writing stories. Sometimes they even pick other people's interviews that they never conducted and they write stories to that. I'll just give you a scenario. The case of Barrow talking about shame or death. I received call from a lot of media houses. They said, this is what Barrow said. What's your opinion? I said, I've never heard it. Can you share with me the story or the link where he said it? All he sent me was a WhatsApp audio that he himself did not even do the interview. It's like picking it from WhatsApp forums. You know, send me the audio, you want me to sound my opinion. And I don't even know, you know, what was the basis of him saying it. So at times, I would call that lazy journalism. You just want to pick up a source from somewhere and run a story. I think it's very important, especially WhatsApp audios. And people don't even introduce themselves. Anybody could record the audio in a forum. Is it actually factual? In most cases, sometimes it's not. So if you run stories on that, you'll definitely land into hot waters.
Absolutely.
Civil,
yes.
I just want to comment on that. I think you made mention in your deliberation one aspect that really, you know, how to call it, impressed me. And then when I look at Bahak and realize that you're talking about the time you started your career as a journalist. And then most of our potential journalists in this country today are not in the Gambia. So we are taking young journalists from the school level. So to me, Gambia has a long way to go in terms of, you know, journalism or journalists being saved in this country, because it's a process. Because what many politicians or different advocates would say, journalists will pick information just like what Dudu has said. You know, they don't verify their information. They don't go into details about this. So I want to ask you, is there any research done in the Gambia indicating why these journalists are going through all these problems of torture, killing? Do you have a research? Because here you are giving an impression that politicians, you know, militants are attacking journalists. But what journalists has done, what is the capacity of those journalists that have been tortured? You know, what, you know, credibility those journalists have in terms of their, you know, media interactions or their publications. So this also counts a lot. It is very, very important that journalists should be, you know, independent. I have a friend of mine who's a journalist. You know, I joined my political party. I invited him. He said, no, that's a no-go area for me. I don't want to join into politics. I asked him why. He said, no, we journalists, we don't want to interfere with politics. I said, oh, okay. So I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, you need to be independent. But for me right now, you know, the capacity of the journalists, you know, is very, very important. The credibility of journalists. Because in Gambia today, we see journalists attack the political parties, you know, and they're depriving other political parties the same access of information. And if you talk about access to information, as the gentleman in the previous presentation said, it should be equal to all across the board. So there is something that is within the gap that we all have to look into in order to, you know, be in balance.
Yeah. Okay, so we go.
Well, can I just come in?
It's like
a little bit serious. I'm just tempted to come in. Excuse me, I'm talking too much. But then what I want to say is, you know, I mean, regardless of the capacity of the journalist, regardless of the education of the journalist, regardless of the experience of the journalist, I don't think that will warrant anybody to go after them or attack them for information they've provided or they've given or whatever. I mean, that is a discussion for another day. The experience, the capacity, the education, or whatever is besides the point. What we are saying is the attack that are meted on them because maybe they said something that somebody doesn't want or somebody doesn't like.
Yeah.
Yes, in the Gambia here, I mean, moving along, in the Gambia, a lot of journalists will tell you, oh, I'm independent, I'm independent. I mean, in most civilized places, journalists are journalists, they're human beings. They have rights, they have opinions, they're citizens of a country, and they should affiliate. But that there should also be a barrier between their personal affiliation to a certain political party, or when it comes to their work reporting independently on issues that you know, everybody has an interest in, or that everybody has a stake in it. So that, I think, that is where the issue is with certain people, because maybe their maturity or their experience is not to that level to understand where to draw the line. So they try very well, but then sometimes you see emotions drive them that their affiliation is revealed and people would know. And because of that, even if they're talking about something very, very sensible, something that is to the interest of everybody else, people will not even look at the message, they look at the individual because of their affiliation. That I agree, it happens here. But not to say, to be generalized, all journalists. You have fine journalists like my ex out there, you know, and people who are really independent. But, you know, they can be independent in truth. But because I have my own opinion, in as much as they're independent, they do their job fairly and freely without looking at partisanship. But I can sit out there and feel like, you know what, oh, they're affiliated to CA, oh, they're CA sympathizers. Is that the fact? No, it's a matter of perception and opinion. And I think the less we do with that, the better for us as parties, as a nation, and as, you know, a country.
Yeah, but Mrs. Seko, I think I agree with what let's be clear. Yes. I want to have this discussion when we come back from lunch. Yeah,
honestly, I want to go eat. I want to go eat.
One thing is you have to understand, we are not encouraging
journalists to be tortured or killed. That is absolutely not the case here. But the point here, as he rightly mentioned, he doesn't worry or care about the credibility, the capacity of that journalist. It's very important, the professionalism of that journalist.
A question for you. A question.
Yes.
So the quality of my view, or the independence of my view, determine the latitude of freedom I should enjoy in my speech.
You will have every freedom that you wish in this country.
The quality of my view doesn't matter.
The quality of your view doesn't matter.
The independence of my view
It doesn't matter. But what matters here, who you are.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, let me tell you.
It's not the person.
That is it, because one thing is here, there's a requirement for anything. You just don't rise from where you are today. You go through stages of your life. So that stages put you to where you are, isn't it? I can't be where you are right now because I didn't go through that process. But I have all the...
At what stage will you accept me?
I would accept you based on the criteria required for you as a journalist.
At what stage will you accept
No, for me, I don't know the criteria involved to be a standard journalist. But based on those criteria, when you met them,
then why not
and when...
I don't know the criteria, why not, as you said, we just listen to the message?
No, we are listening because what happened now, this guy has mentioned it, because when journalists are not doing the work that they're supposed to do, we expect those journalists are not capable.
Like he does, you are at liberty not to say anything.
Yeah, because for him, no, listen, because you don't just take an audio, WhatsApp message.
I have a question before we go, please. You said, okay, let's go.
Let's go. Whether, you know, it's like telling, it's like when we are in a stadium and then a woman get raped, and then you ask the person, what was the length of your skirt when you were being raped? But we are saying there will be problems. There will be problems to journalists in the country. Why? There will be problems because elections are coming. And elections come with heightened security risks and safety risks for journalists. We are saying there will be problems because Gambians are making demands for improvements in service delivery and in democracy. From 2017 to now, the number of protests that we had was 10 times more than what we had from Jara to Jara study years, actually, you know, because governments are making demands for those kind of improvements. Security reforms, we know, is still problematic.
It's non-existent.
No, just leave it at
I want to be diplomatic. we're not political will is a problem. I mean, on the part of the government and many political leaders to pursue the issue of safety of journalists. We know that some politicians, they incite their militants against journalists, like in the case of my party and the Kebab issue. We know that also journalists are now more courageous and they are now more daring to ask questions, to go to where they were not going, and usually there are frictions. We know those problems are there. But then, when you look at it also, what we are basically saying is that look at this man, Mandela. He made all these nice things. It always seems impossible. And all of us politicians would like to quote Mandela, no? We do. Yes. So, but we forget that Mandela was once a village boy. Then what? A student. Then what? A lawyer. Then what? A rebel. A prisoner.
A prisoner, yeah.
A president. I mean, an icon. You know?
Not a freedom fighter.
Well, yeah, because the apartheid regime labeled him as a rebel.
But that's that.
So some of these things that he said them when he was considered to be a rebel. But the question is, what if his words were never heard? What if we say, okay, because we disagree with Mandela, we're going to start him out? Are they going to be heard? I mean, are they going to be heard? We always talk about, for example, Galileo Galilei, you know, the Greek philosopher who came out and said the earth wasn't Galileo. Or Galileo. Is he not Greeks?
No, he is Italian physicist.
He's Italian?
Yes.
Thank you for that rectification. So Galileo came out and said the earth is round.
No, he said the earth, yeah, he said the sun is the center of the solar system.
And it revolves around it.
Yes,
that's what he said.
The sun revolves around the solar system. And then
beautiful.
He was put in house arrest by the church.
For the rest of his life?
Yeah, the rest of his life.
Because he went against who?
The system.
The system was Aristotelian and Co.
No, the system was more Egyptian.
Aristotle who came and said the earth was circled.
The earth
That's
was
what he
the
said.
center of
No, Aristotle said it has four corners.
No.
Square.
Yeah, it has four corners. And the position of Aristotle became the position of the church.
Yes, and the position of the church is Joshua's position, which says the earth is flat.
It's flat and has four corners.
It's the center of the earth, the center of the solar system.
Yes.
So Copernicus and Galileo, when they came, they proposed something different. Copernicus came and they started the theory of heliocentrism.
Sure.
He said that the sun is the center of the solar system.
Sure.
Apart from not the earth. And then he was jailed and then later executed. And then Galileo Galilei came again and further proposed and there more evidence, and he was put on the house again.
Yes. So the question then becomes, if Galileo Galilei was never allowed to say what he said, just because you disagree with him, and what you considered to be true at the time wasn't actually true, you sent him to jail for the rest of his life. Why did you disagree with me? And then you threw me to jail. Why? So we look at this man, Noam Chomsky. And he said, if we don't believe in freedom of expression for the people that we despise, we don't believe in it at all. So for you to say, okay, I like freedom of expression, it means you don't have to like what you say, because what you say is most lovable. It also means you kind of like what I say and the things that you disagree with, that I say it. All right? You look at Mandela, and we're talking about the press. Let's go to his next quote. He said, none of our irritations or perceived inadequacies of the media. That's what he said. We might be irritated with the press. We might perceive their capacity to be inadequate. That's why I was waiting to answer him. That's what Mandela said. We might be irritated with what they say. We might feel that they don't have the quality to say the things that they should say. But he said we shouldn't even suggest, even faintly, that the independence should be compromised. That's what he said. Do we agree with him?
I do agree.
Okay.
And the final, you forgot the final line there. A bad free press is preferable to a technically good subservient press.
Amazing. Yeah, because we all agree as politicians that an attack on the media, that's why those that don't agree with the police, I agree with you. Because an attack on a journalist is an attack on democracy. Because the journalists don't just have the right to go and diagnose the problems. Because you, as members of the public, no matter where your standing is, you have a right to perceive that the journalist is right. So you have a corresponding right. Yeah.
So as a result, I mean, I hope you will vote for me.
What we want you guys to do is we want you guys.
He's political.
Yeah. You monitor press freedom issues as political parties. As easy as that. You monitor press freedom issues. Once a journalist is attacked, once a law is about being passed, monitor it and have it in your party system. You know? And then talk to journalists. It's always important to talk to them. Even those that you disagree with. But whenever there is a situation and you are in doubt, there is always a GP report. There is always a particular journalist to call to seek clarification. But in your party programs also, do you have issues of press freedom? What do you want to do to consolidate democracy by protecting the safety of journalists or by promoting it? Probably we want to see a lot more of that. I'm not going to comment on that. But more importantly, anytime there is an attack on a journalist, anytime there is an attack on press freedom, it is important for parties as democratic institutions to come out and condemn those. Because an attack on a journalist is an attack on democracy.
salaamaaleykum Gambia nuyu leen rek ku nekk si turam ak santam nuñ koy waxee rek saa su ne Gambia dafa nekk dëkk boo xam ne nag ñu bari ñu ngi tëdda waaye nelawun waaye ñu bari tamit ñu ngi toog seen kër ñu ngi xalaat ñoom lan leen.
If you want to receive monies from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world, Supersonics Money Transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Askan wi génn leen ñu pengu jee fagarlu moo gan fa jooyaay mooy li ñuy aar.
Asalaamaaleykum wa rahmatullahi taala wa barakatuhu. Mbokk yi ñuy seetaan man la al oustaz Mouhamadul Amin Kane Al Mansouri maa ngi leen di massaw ci feebaru mbas bii nga xam ne wër na àdduna bi tëj na doomu aadama yi ñu koy wax coronavirus ku ne xam na ne rey na doomu aadama yu bare bari ci àdduna bi. Feek am na ku ko am rek yëgal ne kenn muccagul. lu ciy pexe la ciy pexe mbokk moo di nga jóg gaaw léegi bi nga déggee sama kàddu dem jëli vaccine bi. Comme vaccine am na nañu sant yàlla te vacciné wu. dalalal sa xel nga dem jëli vaccine bi ndax nga aar sa bopp aar sa njaboot waaye aar ñeneen ñi nga dëkk